Just what Senator Chris Dodd needs. Two more challengers. We are joined today by independent candidate Dr. John Mertens. He is a professor at Trinity College. Dr. Mertens, thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure.
I want to ask you, because there is some confusion out there. I mean, you've been out there campaigning for the Senate race against Senator Chris Dodd, and then this week you showed up in commercials, not mentioning that you're a candidate, but sort of campaigning against Joe Lieberman. So explain this for us.
It wasn't a campaign against Joe Lieberman. It was an attempt to save the public option in the health care bill, which I supported because the health care bill requires everyone to purchase insurance. And I'm worried about the working middle class families who don't qualify for the subsidies but are going to be forced to buy insurance. So I thought the public option would provide an affordable, basic health care insurance package for them. So,
but why not identify yourself as a Senate candidate in that commercial?
It was run by the Progressive Change Campaign Committee, so it was not a campaign commercial for me. I did it for them as a favor.
So, you know, as you campaign out there, you're basically asking the voters to fire Chris Dodd after nearly 30 years in the Senate. Why should he be replaced?
Well, it's not about Dodd. My campaign is not about Dodd. I'm running because we have huge long-term problems that no Republican or Democrat even talks about, let alone suggesting solutions. My website, I have 30 detailed position statements and solutions to long-term problems. And I'm offering voters an alternative to the same old baloney that we get from the Republicans and the Democrats, who make vague, general promises, and then when they get to Washington, they basically do nothing.
And would you say that about your opponent, Senator Dodd? Has he done nothing?
If I had been a member of the Senate for 30 years, I would be embarrassed at the record of the U.S. Congress over the last 30 years if I was a member of that organization.
Should Senator Dodd be embarrassed by his record?
I think every member of Congress should be embarrassed by what's happened in the last 30 years in this country.
Specifically, though, you're going to have to tell voters as to why they should choose you over Chris Dodd. What is the #1 reason you would do that?
I offer calm, intelligent, nonpartisan problem solving. I'm an engineer. I'm an educator. I've done a lot of committee work at Trinity College in faculty governance. I'm a father. I've raised 4 children. I'm a problem solver. I don't care about the partisan bickering or about getting reelected. You know, these Congress people care more about getting reelected every 2 or 6 years than they care about the future and the long-term problems. You know, we're facing a $36 trillion shortfall in Medicare in the next 75 years. We're facing a $12 trillion shortfall in Social Security. We have a $12 trillion national debt. Our entire GDP is $14 trillion. And this is going to hit us like a ton of bricks in about 8 years because, and if we can get into more details, you know, in 1960 we had 5 people paying into Medicare and Social Security for each retired person. Now we have 3.3 people paying into it. And in about 20 years it's going to be down to 2.1 people for each retiree. And if we don't do something about these huge problems now, it's going to be almost impossible to fix in 10 years.
There are some liberal Democrats who are pretty upset that you're running. Why is that?
It's not just liberal Democrats. I've been called a Naderite, a GOP sympathizer, a socialist, a teabagger, and a communist, not to mention some other words that I can't say on television. And you're right, they're mostly Dodd supporters who think that I should not exercise my right in a democracy to run for office. And I don't really understand it. If they go to my website, I think if any Republican, Independent, or Democrat went to my website, they would vote for me. My mission is to get 51% of the people in Connecticut to go to my website, read my positions, and I'll win.
Do you think Senator Dodd should distance himself from Senator Lieberman?
Yes.
Why?
Senator Lieberman has lost his way. He lost his way on Iraq, and now he has lost his way on health care.
Has Senator Dodd lost his way at all, you think?
I think Senator Dodd has done his best with health care. I think President Obama made a mistake in the way he handled the whole health care bill. I think he should have presented the bill that we should have gotten and then sent it to Congress and fought for it instead of putting it into a committee and just let the committee figure out what it should be. I think Senator Dodd has made a lot of big mistakes in his career. I think we should have term limits. I think no one should be in Congress for 30 years. He was chair of the Banking Committee, and he took $13 million in donations from banks and mortgage companies and big corporations and insurance companies. You know, that's wrong. We need real campaign finance reform.
That's a fireable offense, you think?
Yes, I do. I do. I mean, he blew it when it came to the mortgage crisis. He fought regulations that would have prevented the crisis. while he was chairman of the banking committee.
Let me ask you this before we're out of time. What is the strategy to win? It's difficult for an independent to win against two well-financed parties.
Very
How are you going to do it?
Well, I'm doing a lot of unusual things. I have a half-hour TV show that I'm producing that's going out to every public access station in the state. John Mertens for U.S. Senate is going to run in every household in Connecticut that has cable television about 4 times a month. I've been working on name recognition. I'm very appreciative that you had me on the show. I'm looking forward to coming back later and getting a full half hour. You know, the Hartford Courant's been pretty good to me. I've been very disappointed in the pollsters, in Mr. Schwartz at Quinnipiac. I'm going to be on the ballot in November. We have a ballot line. I'm going to be one of 3 people on the ballot, a Republican, a Democrat, and me. I should be included in the polls. You know, they should be doing, would you vote for Dodd, Schiff, or Mertens? There's going to be 3 people on the ballot. Voters are going to have 3 choices. There's a systemic bias against non-Republicans and Democrats in this country, and that's part of our problem.
Have you asked him to be polled, to be included?
Yes.
And what was the answer?
He said, we'll consider your request, and then he did not include me. Now I think he might. More than 1 million people have seen my face and know my name due to this commercial you're talking about in the last week. I've been on every major blog. I was in the New York Times. I was in the Washington Post. You know, if you Google me, there's many, many, many hits. So, you know, he said that, you know, they base their decisions based on how much media attention you've been getting, how much of an impact you're going to have on the race, how much money you've raised, and if you're in other polls. Right. So I think I qualify at this point. I should be in the polls that he does in late January.
John Mertens, independent candidate for Senate, Doctor of Economics, correct?
Engineering.
Engineering, excuse me.
I'm a problem solver.
A problem solver from Trinity College. Thank you so much, Dr. Mertens, for being with us, and we'll be right back. More Face the State in a moment.